In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I do my competitor research for our potential competition before we start building. If you don't know me, my name is Sean Boyce, and I've been building SaaS businesses for years as a bootstrapped founder. And I'm building my next project in public so that you can borrow from my process to hopefully increase your chances of success. This is day 3 of building this project in public, which again would be a SaaS product for the legal services industry to help them with their billing related challenges. I've created multiple pieces of content already along this journey, so I'll link to that so that you can refer to those so you don't miss anything. What we've accomplished so far is idea validation and market validation. Like I mentioned, today we're going to focus on deeper on the competitive research side. So why are we doing this step now? Well, we want to get a better idea for the competitive landscape so we can learn anything about them everywhere from their business model to their potential roadmap. Because what we want to do is we want to better understand how we might position our SaaS product in the market, at least in the beginning. And this exercise is also expected to have quite a bit of influence over our efforts, anywhere from solution design all the way to and through pricing. All right, so let's fire up our tool set leveraging AI to see what we can learn more about diving deeper into the competitive landscape. Okay, so I've got Claude queued up here and I've given it a prompt instructing it what I want to do and where it can gather the context from what we've built thus far. So as I mentioned before, you can build a project in Claude and in there you can add multiple chats. I'm separating them out for each step in the process that I'm building with you in public, but I'm referring back to any of the context that we've already gathered, like the previous video that I created where we learned what the competitive landscape looks like and it gave a couple of examples of those. So in this prompt, what I'm telling it to do is that we want to go deeper in our competition and we want to learn more about how their systems work, anything they can do, anything they can't do, because we're looking for potential gaps there that will influence our solution design effort. I also want to know what the market is saying. So go to forums or places where lawyers hang out and see if you can't get context about people actually using these tools. What do they have to say? Are they saying good things? Are they saying bad things? And then what is the context for each of those? Because that may speak to like broken promises or areas that there currently are gaps in terms of their functionality that we may be able to fill and or will help us better understand what an established baseline might look like for the minimum that we're going to be expected to accomplish in us bringing a solution to that market as well too. I've also given it some instruction about where to go to find some of this stuff. Forums, Reddit, Quora, like we tried previously as well too, or any areas where law firm owners or lawyers are potentially hanging out talking about this kind of stuff, right? Experiencing their challenges and working with others, trying to solve those out, trying to sort those out as well too. So I'm going to kick this command off, and I'm going to see what it can accomplish, and then we'll be back to review those results. Okay, so AI's come back with a crazy amount of helpful information and relatively quickly. This only took a couple of minutes. So let's take a look at what it found. Over on the left-hand side, it's got kind of a summary panel of the key pieces of information we were looking for. And over on the right, it produced a document with a tremendous amount of detail with everything that we could possibly have hoped for. So we're going to review both. Let's take a look. So on the left-hand panel side, it's got the table of the key competitors in the market that it identified as part of the previous step that we did when we did the market validation exercise. And it's summarized in here what their respective strengths and weaknesses are, which is great. That helps us better understand how we may position and strategically what we might want to do with our product just in terms of bringing that solution to market. Also identified some key opportunities for us in terms of like what these competitors are not necessarily focusing on, but more than likely there's demand in the market for. So this helps us better understand what we might want to do strategically. Now, if we flip over to the document side, we can flip through these pages and see just how much crazy helpful information was provided. You've got an executive summary at the top and a really helpful table, which lists not just the competitors, but the approach that they're taking. So we better understand like what they're going for. That's kind of a roadmap-y element. Pricing for what they're currently charging, and only some of which is provided, and that was flagged as an opportunity. That transparency isn't great in this market. If they are funded, and if they're funded and then information's been made public, how much they've raised. And each of these has raised millions of dollars. Again, Clio has raised almost $1 billion. They've been around for a while. They're an entire, it says PMS there, practice management system is what that means. And you'll pick up and learn these things as you're diving deeper into your market, especially if it isn't one that you are natively familiar with, right? I'm not a lawyer. I haven't worked as a lawyer anywhere. So I need to learn some of these things, become better educated in order to bring better solutions to the market. and then who they're targeting from a market size perspective. That also helps us figure out where we might want to fit in. Now, in the beginning of building your SaaS product, more than likely, it's usually easier to get in at smaller firms or at least get their attention, start having meetings with them and trying to introduce your product to them and or getting them to use your product. But don't sell yourself short here. If your product winds up being very competitive and providing a lot of value, there may be an opportunity for you to move up market sooner than you think. And then as we scroll down further in this document, it has created a detailed profile for each one of these competitors with some crazy helpful information. And here we see how their systems work, key features that they currently provide, capabilities and limitations. Love this table, especially the limitations, because that helps us figure out like how we may be able to compete successfully against them by going directly at their weaknesses and positioning ourselves as such. And then market sentiment. I love this as well too. What do people that are using this theoretically have to say about using it? Good and bad. That helps us better understand what the reaction from the market looks like. So the balance of this document goes through a detailed profile for each one of these. I will read and consume all this information, and it'll be incredibly helpful and valuable as we're thinking about how we're going to design and build what it is we're planning. So I'll jump to the next section, kind of beyond these profiles, to show you that it's also provided greater context in what I was looking for related to pain points across these various competitors. Again, this helps us better understand from a technical perspective what we may want to consider doing that they maybe are not doing particularly well now. And this also, some of these also point to objections that our target market may have and how we might want to try to handle for those in what we write in our copy, on our landing pages, and what we say if we're doing demos and sales conversations and all kinds of great stuff. The strategic opportunity sections is great because that helps us better understand, market segments that are not currently served particularly well. So underserved market segments, featured gaps that we can potentially exploit, and go to market opportunities as we design everything that we're doing. So as usual, it produced a ton of incredible, helpful information and relatively quickly. So I'm going to templatize all this kind of stuff and create a guide for you that you can access via a link in the description so that you can do the same exercise for your SaaS product build and get all of this value very early in the process, even before you start building, and getting into that solution design phase. Something I wanted to do as part of this competitor review as well too is I wanted to pick one of the options from the list that we've been reviewing. I want to take a look at their website to see what we might be able to learn. This is obviously something I'd recommend you do as well too. So I chose the billables.ai option, and here you can see their landing page. You can go through and see what they're using in terms of their marketing copy, what they're saying their product can do, who they're working with, all kinds of really interesting things to kind of learn here. Now, you may not be able to get a ton of detail from a technical perspective in terms of how their product works, but you can still learn a lot. And I wanted to point out two things in particular that I noticed when I was looking at their site. And it speaks to some of the data that came from the research that we did previously. Number one, it doesn't look like I can gain access to their product myself. So they're not taking a product-led approach or taking more of a sales-led approach. And they may very well have a good reason for doing that. But that might speak to an opportunity for us as well also if we design our experience in a way that enables our users to kind of go right into the product and just start using it. The other thing I noticed as well too, now there's other sections of this site, but none of them seem to speak to pricing. So one of the things that was mentioned is pricing transparency is of high interest for this target market. So we may be able to take a different approach than they are here as well also. So as you review any potential websites or landing pages or any of that kind of stuff for the competitors in your space, you can kind of get to figure out like what's going on with what they're doing and how you might position yourself differently. All right, so that's it for this video. We did a super deep dive into the competitive landscape and we learned a ton. I've got plenty to pour over, and it's going to influence everything from our solution design, how we think about what we build, all the way to and through, positioning and marketing and all kinds of cool stuff as we're looking to kind of grow and scale and make progress from here.